Hello and welcome to the Rat Nest Podcast. Today we are joined by Cameron Hatheway.
Hey!
And before we get started, I just want to mention we're doing the Rat Nest Art Fest in Redlands, California, May 28th from 12 to 6 p.m. Saturday, Memorial Day weekend. Come out, get some comics, talk to your friends, see some live art, see some paintings on the wall, and have a drink and some food. Cameron!
It's going to be a good time.
What is up, dude?
My guy, Cam. How you doing, bro?
I'm so upset that I'm going to miss that, too.
We're very upset as well.
I'm in Scotland on my honeymoon, finally, for 2 weeks. And unfortunately, I'm going to miss that gigantic Rat Nest event because I would totally be tabling there. I'd totally be spitting hot verses with Charles Blavich there. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be there.
Well, so to be quite honest with you,
have fun without me.
I don't think a honeymoon is a good enough excuse to miss the Rat Nest Art Fest. I don't know.
No, dude.
Dave, I love you. I know we've been planning this for the past 2 years, but can we maybe push it back after this upcoming weekend? That'd be great. Thank you.
No, congratulations to you and your lady, man. Seriously, big ups. I know you guys have been waiting a long time because of COVID to be able to go out and celebrate this beautiful thing, but you guys are great together. Your guys' Instagrams together and everything that you do is just so damn cute, man. You guys are great.
Get out of here. Get out of here. Now, when we went to France in November, we went for Thanksgiving, over Thanksgiving break, just to get the hell out of the country, get a sense of normalcy. And I even tried to reach out to comic book shops overseas there via email, asking hey, it's me, an American. I'm coming over. I have these comics. Are you interested in possibly on consignment or what have you? And I made sure to focus on ones that were really indie based or really international based. And no one got back to me. And it was just okay, well, I guess I didn't have to bring that on carry on then. But yeah, that's the dream, getting it overseas one day.
You're I didn't have to leave the country for comic book shops to ignore my emails.
Nothing keeps you humble than unanswered emails from comic shops. But no, I mean, I'm in 5 different ones, all over the country. And I just have been talking to 2 new ones. And so it's,
awesome.
Fingers crossed that things happen. One of them is Silver Sprocket in San Francisco.
Oh,
and
great.
I love Silver Sprocket. So they're hey, just send us 4 of everything. It's okay, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's nice.
Slowly but surely, the empire of Clusterfux grows.
Dude, congratulations. That's awesome, bro.
That's what we're talking about. It seems like only yesterday we were having our first conversation about Clusterfux issue 1 and getting that shit together and
dude,
Rat Nest just starting. You were, I mean,
I think you were episode 5 or something real early on, and it was right before that we made the trip out to LA to drop off. I think it was the first Clusterfux issue.
It was.
Yeah, we had Rat Nest did that for you, and we made the trip out. That was the first time meeting. It was in the height of COVID. We had to wear our masks and meet down in the lobby of the place, kind of fist bumping to say what's up as we met each other. And look where we are today, man.
Man, so much has changed since then. That
Serious.
was where the wife and I used to live, and now we're in Studio City. It's only a couple miles from North Hollywood where we used to be. But just to think okay, yes, we were all masked up. We were all still meeting each other for the first time. How do you do? You're Mr. Rat and you're Mr. Nest. Nice to meet you. And then just where we're at now, where it's just we went from, this little flimsy, issue 1 to full on spine, perfect bound issue 4 within just a matter of years. It's crazy. And dude, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today without you guys. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am of that.
Well, the same
quality work, and it's made by, I can feel the love that you guys helped put into it.
We wouldn't be where we were without the people that go through us and work with us like you.
Just like you,
so,
man. Seriously.
The way we've been helping each other out for the last 1.5, 2 years now almost is indicative of the work. It's going to look good because we've had some time to kind of craft it. This is 4. Yeah. We've done some smaller comics between that. We've done a lot of things where we kind of expect a certain expectation, or I expect an expectation, but have an expectation better than the last one, or we try to at least.
Well, and let's be perfectly clear. The reason that issue 4 looks so good is because of your care and the time that you put into the design, sending it over. There wasn't a lot on our end that Matt had to do. I'm not going to pretend
Jim.
like I had to do it. But there wasn't a lot. Like, you put in a lot of time and care though, and that made that issue 4 look just so much better.
I appreciate you saying so, because yes, I definitely felt, I knew I always wanted to go bigger. Like, I want the Kramer's Ergot like size at least one day. I want it packed to the brim with such raw talent, and it was just baby steps. You could slowly see the progression of, all right, we're getting a little bigger. Oh, now we're doubling. Now we're like quadrupling in size, and the quality is still remaining consistent. I mean,
yes.
I love that it's so big that if I were to drop this from like a 1-story building, it would probably kill a small child. Like, that brings me so much joy knowing that like my comic could be used as a weapon and like be evidence in a crime scene if possible. But no, I mean, it's been such a wild ride. I did not think 2 years ago, like, oh, I would be here where I'm at today. Before COVID and all that stuff, I just thought, okay, this would be something I'd be tackling on the weekends. I would just be doing this on my free time. It would be my little hobby. And, maybe I get an issue out in a year that, I could really be proud of. But a couple years later, and like, I already have issue 5, like in the horizon up in January of 2023. And,
wonderful.
It's just like, it still brings me joy and excitement. But at the same time, because of like how busy I've been at work the past for the past year, or like the past since January, it feels like I've been consistently being bombarded at work. And so I had to really pull back after getting issue 4 in a good place. Instead of pushing myself to get like issue 5 out later this year, I was just like, I need a break. Work is like unrelenting, and I don't want to burn out. I don't want to get upset that it becomes a chore, that I have to edit this stuff and I have to not give it the love I want. And, if I try to rush it, that's how mistakes happen. Or if I don't give it the care and the love it deserves. Because like you, looking at like the final product and the final PDF and helping me go through and making sure everything looks good resolution wise, like when I get pages in and, they're a little rough, or, they need some love, that's a good day of just going through, every square inch of that thing. Making any little edits, adding little lines here and there, or making it seem that it's going to be the best comic when it's printed on the paper there. And, it takes a lot out of you. It's not easy. And if anyone tells you it's easy, their comics probably look like shit. So you want to have that attention to detail.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's not going to end well.
Yeah. This week I finished editing the Ratness scene, the first one we're putting out.
Oh, I'm so excited for that. That's going to be great.
You're in it. You're involved.
Yeah.
You get it.
You
know what's going on. But so I'm sitting there, and I of course, in true my fashion, I put it off for 6 days or something past what I initially wrote down. Need to get it to printer. You know what I mean? Like, need to get it done. So I keep procrastinating. I keep making excuses. I keep like being so self-doubtful that I don't even want to touch the project. And then all in one day, I'm like, all right, it's do or die time. True procrastination. Bow. 8 hours, dude. I sat there. My wife was like, you need to eat. You need to like step away. You've drank 3 cups of coffee and a cold brew. You need to like not think about that. But yeah, the same thing you're saying is you sit there and you click and you edit and you clean up little lines and you clean up stuff because you want to present the best thing possible because it has your name on it.
Yes. 100%. And like, yeah. And I'm sure you're familiar with just like looking at the screen and then having to remind yourself to like, crack your back.
Yeah.
Like, focus. Just like,
why does my brain hurt?
Like start seeing shit. I have seen so many speckles like out of my peripherals of just like, okay, wait, is that something on my screen there, or is that an actual like mark on the image itself?
Totally.
It's like it's playing mind games with you, and then you need to step away and supposedly eat. But no, it's just like once you get in the zone, time flies. It's just like
crazy.
playing video games. You're like, holy shit.
And then like, I guess I could get paid for this, but I couldn't do it every day, dude. If I had to do that every day for 30, 40 hours a week, my brain would be fried.
Mush,
It would be
yeah.
nuts.
Well, speaking
So
of,
here's, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, speaking of time flying, from like we said earlier, you were in like one of the first episodes we did, and then now you're already, and that was Clusterfux issue 1. Now you're already on Clusterfux 4, and that was like maybe a year ago tops, like maybe a little bit 14 months ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
And not only have you done 4 issues of Clusterfux, you've just churned out issue after issue, project after project of everything that you're doing. Like most recently, the free comic book day comic, which was phenomenal, by the way. Great job. I think that was just great. But you've done so much in between, along with promoting yourself and marketing yourself. Like the Cam that we interviewed in season 1 and the Cam that we're interviewing today is such a different Cam. Like same guy, but like
if I was a Pokemon, I wouldn't even be at my final form yet. I'd just be like the Wartortle. I wouldn't even be Blastoise yet.
You'd be halfies, yeah.
But still, you've evolved. You've evolved.
Yeah.
If you were a Pokemon, what Pokemon would you be?
Yeah, that's a good question for Cam.
Probably like Mr. Mime or something.
Shut up, Mr. Mime! You psychic Pokemon.
Yeah, no, seriously. But no, thank you about the free comic book day. And yeah, I mean, it's true. Like between Clusterfux, I've also been doing like my Fugu comics, like Ultra Fugu, and then the free comic book day in particular. That wasn't even on my radar. Jim Fletcher, who used to be the head of DC Direct over at DC Comics, they did all the statues and action figures and stuff.
Okay,
he's a close friend of my wife and I. He's even like helped officiate our wedding stateside.
Sick.
And he put it that I always send him copies of my comics just because I know he'd find them enjoyable, because he's quite the illustrator himself. And someone like this, just the sketches that I've seen from him, I'm just like, oh my God, like this stuff is amazing. And so slowly the campaign started with like, okay, maybe I'll just give him a couple of my comics, just to float it out there, just see how he reacts to it. And sure enough, he bit at one point, and he's like, hey, I would love to maybe contribute something further down the line. And so when we were having conversations, he was the one who suggested, you know what you should do? You should have a free comic book day issue. And like, I have a whole Rolodex of friends I could like, hook you up with and stuff like that. And I was just like, you know what? That could be fun. I mean, when is it? Like a couple months away? Yeah, sure. Let's just see what happens.
Doesn't 2 months away seem like so much longer than it actually is? And you're like, yeah, that's fine. That's not until like June.
But thankfully, it wasn't that intensive, in the sense that it wasn't the 8.5 by 11 size that I always have. It was a smaller issue, still black and white, and it wasn't relying heavily on comics, but rather like illustrations and people's own interpretations of the Clusterfux, 4 skull logo there. And so with him and his suggestion and me thinking I could really do this, I tapped in my own people, and like, it wasn't even like the regular contributors. It was people who I want to have like, contribute something one day, like the David Moses, the Hank Simmons, the Paula Masigli, like all these people who I've always admired and been, fans of, and getting them to just contribute something. And it worked. And and the ironic part is, the man who told me that, I should go on this journey, Jim, he was the last person to get me like his illustration. Like, it was a deadline. I'm just like, Jim, where's your illustration? He's like, oh, was that due like today? Oh, I'll whip something up really quick. And I'm just like,
that's
the best,
the best of the best, dude.
And I'm really proud of that. And I've been hearing really good things too, because I made sure all the comic shops out there got copies to give away for free comic book day who stock my stuff. And some people were asking me, even like after this weekend, just like, hey, do you have any copies left? Like, I want to get a copy. And I direct them the Rat Nest's way. I was like, listen, they'll have copies. They'll, you order something from their site, they'll include it with you. But it's also available as a free download as a PDF on my website. So if you didn't get a physical copy and you still want to get, see what's out there, beautiful high-res image. It's fantastic. You can go to kamiscomiccorner.com/comics and then scroll down. You can find it right there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that I don't know. Is that in the book? You didn't print that in the book that there'd be a digital copy, did you?
I didn't. No, it kind of came to me afterwards. I was thinking, well, if this is going to be a limited thing, I do want people to see it. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to go to a second printing. And I mean, I might, just because there's a indie comic book day.
Don't do it.
Say what?
Dude, don't do it. Do a new book. Fuck. Let it die.
Okay. Well, you heard it here first. It's a collector's item now.
I don't think it'll ever die, though, because the content in there is not going to die. That content's going to be immortal.
Yeah.
It's true. It's absolutely. I mean, and I'm so, and I mean, people who've gotten their comp copies, they tell me like, oh my God, this looks great. This looks fantastic. I'm so excited to be in like the same comic as all these other people, because some of these people didn't know who else was going to be in it. Everyone was just like, oh, sure. I'll just take a risk or whatever. And then I've been hearing from other people like, whoa, that person was in it. Like that. I love that guy's work. I didn't know, I'd be sharing the same page with him or whatnot. So yeah, I mean, it's really exciting, and it kind of gives me, hope and inspiration to do similar things in the future, whether it's another free comic book day or with this upcoming indie comic book day in October, that I might, possibly do something. I mean, and it doesn't even have to be that format. It could be something like a newspaper or something like that too. Like the sky's the limit for this stuff.
A single page large format, or even like a small zine of some sort. Like, it could be anything. It's not free comic book day, so it doesn't have to be in those realms.
A comic book, yeah.
No, and it's funny because I think it was Gutter Pop. They posted like, hey, we have all these like, these unauthorized free comic book day like selections at like the front register. And it was myself and like maybe 4 other comics. But yeah, it was just like we were having our own free comic book day. We didn't have the official banner like free comic book day. So, just in case anyone was getting offended by anything, that I was be like kind of on the be an outlaw like that. Yeah. Get the comics out there, no matter what means.
California, it's the Wild Wild West.
West Side till we die. Yeah, sure.
Ace, all right. So,
dude,
that was the worst transition ever.
So
West Side till we die. Hey, so
about the West Side.
Yeah, no, but really, I want to ask a serious question. That's why it was a terrible transition. But personally, in your opinion, I'm able to see from Clusterfux 1 and Fugu and Super Fugu and everything that you've done as I followed you since I've known you, I've been able to see the progress that you've made. How do you view your progress from Clusterfux issue 1 to Clusterfux issue 4 and everything in between?
As far as editing goes?
Your style, the character of your comics is there, but how would you say that you've been able to hone it? Because there's an obvious, I don't want to say simplification, but you've honed it down to exactly what you want it to be from the first one to what this one is, at least in the view that I can see. So how would you say that you were able to take it from that first one to that honed in version of what it is now?
It was all about experimentation, while also knowing, like having the vision, and then figuring out working with what I had, how to get there, and how to make it stand alone on its own, but also set itself up as like a step to like the next level there. Mm-hmm. So with the first issue, much like any artist will tell you, you look back at it, even if it's like a year old, you're still just like cringing because only you can see the mistakes and the flaws of like what you could have done better. Whether it was for like issue 1, I hadn't honed in on like the levels and like, the darkness of the line and how to like with brightness and contrast and stuff like that. It was still kind of in its infancy right there. Even with just the second issue, I really felt myself getting a little bit more really bold and feeling like I had enough chutzpah to experiment a little bit more and take time out, even if I was planning on just like, editing certain pages, seeing different versions of the same page and seeing how that would look under different lenses too, and different techniques, and figuring out when to figure out when to work and when not to work, and going with the gut on what goes when and all that fun stuff, if that makes any sense. But basically it was a learning curve. And like with issue 2, there were some mistakes, and I still kind of look at those going like, oh, I wish I could have done this, I could have done that. But then from issue 3 onward, I was really honing in on what I wanted. And I wanted to tell some or a couple page stories, comics, couple of pinups, maybe minus a few more, just to get to a good little balance of showing the stories, and then get a little palette cleanser with a pinup or two, or just a couple of shorter comics, and then going right back to more comics, and just comics that you're going to take a couple of minutes to read, not just like one pagers where it's just one and done. I feel like there was a lot of those.
I went completely the opposite. I went simple as shit. I'm just straight up, because you know what I'm talking about when I say this is like, I went all pinups, a couple 1-page comics to kind of cleanse it, a couple of 2-page comics from the same artist to break up a section, and then a couple interviews, and that was like the middle kind of chunk of it. But a lot of them are 1-page standalone, just pieces of art, which in the experience of putting together the zine for me recently was a little tougher than I expected, because you like a lot of different types of art, and then when you get all the submissions to edit and put stuff together and see what looks good side by side, it's not always as easy as you think. It doesn't just fall together. You really have to take a good look at it and see, okay, how is this going to work page to page?
Oh, 100%. Sometimes the juxtaposition just doesn't work at all, and then it just looks like it's a completely different comic, or it's a different collection of things. And so that's why it's important to like take a good bird's eye view. And I mean, if you have the means necessary to like print out every page and then shuffle it around in real time just to see what works and what doesn't, that's definitely beneficial. I mean, I couldn't do that with issue 4 because it was 142 fucking pages. I don't have that much paper and ink. But no, I mean, it was looking at things like Kramer's Ergot, looking at things like Raw, looking at all these other anthologies that I'm a big fan of. Like, you just look at what tickled my pickle, what worked for me as a reader, and how to convey that similar experience to someone who's reading an issue of Clusterfux, where even after the first couple of pages, you know what you're getting into. It's not going to all of a sudden go from like, a story about a devil who's dressed up as a bus driver taking all these passengers to hell, and then it's going to go into like something like My Little Pony thing. It's like, no. There's going to be a similar wavelength of, it feels underground. It feels like you're not going to see this in traditional comic shops per se. This isn't something that you're going to see at like a bigger publisher, as it were. This is something that's going to feel like an indie comic, something that's going to be different from what you normally read with like compared to a superhero book. And I mean, I've heard the feedback from people from issue 3, from this issue 4. People really like the format. They know what they're getting into, and it's not just a one sitting kind of read. It's something you can really just, sit down, read a story or two, go about your day and come back and still, enjoy right where you left off. And I mean, that just brings me so much joy, not only hearing from the contributors that they're psyched and thrilled to be a part of this, but from readers like their friends and family, even just like, oh my God, you're in this like cool anthology. I'll pick up a copy. I'll support you. And then they're posting about it, a week later on their stories. And just seeing that, it really, fills your heart. You feel like you're making a difference. Big and I mean, this is still somewhat of a hobby to me. I'm not in it to make money. No one goes into comics to make money. Right. I'm going into it to really expose these people and get them a wider audience that I truly believe they deserve. Instagram is one thing. You can subscribe to someone on Instagram, but they might get lost in, in the algorithm. But if you have them in a physical copy, it's supposedly timeless. You can you can revisit them anytime you want.
Yeah, dude.
So yeah, I mean, I feel a lot's been learned from issue 1 to issue 4, and from an editor's perspective. And also, I mean, I won't name the company, but someone who works for one of these independent comic book publishers did reach out to me asking like, hey, we had like a assistant editor position open up. I know you do these comics. Would you be interested? And I politely declined because A, I know this company doesn't pay well. And B, like my current day job, I'm doing, I'm sure 3 times what they'd be offering me. So it's like, again, I'm not trying to make a living off this yet. It's more of just something that's keeping me occupied, but also it's flexing that creative muscle, not just with Clusterfux, but also with like my Fugu comics and stuff like that too. Because Clusterfux, I'm all about showing all these beautiful people off. And then Fugu Comics is like, hey, look at me. I'm just
Yes.
weird, and I have, these likes, and I want to show and share with you my likes, and maybe you'll like them too. Maybe you'll get what I'm doing, or you'll just think I'm crazy, and you just wasted $5 and no refunds. But everyone's different.
You do this anthology, you start off, this is like a passion project during COVID. You're like, fuck, I need something to do. I know people, I know what looks good. I put together this thing. I'm an editor in chief and make it kind of what I want to see on the paper and what I think's interesting to show to other people. And then you go, hey, I'm going to do my own thing too. What was the motivation, or what was the jump to be like, I'm also going to do this comic where it's just about a pufferfish, and like it just revolves around Fugu. Like that's pretty insane. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it's pretty wild.
Thank you. Now, Matt, when you're unemployed like I was, you have a lot of free time, and you let all these creative thoughts that have been, harbored inside of you deep down for so long to just float to the surface like a pufferfish. But before Clusterfux was even a thing, I had been doing this character Fugu for forever. I had a whole sketchbook that I still go back to for ideas.
Was that high school, pre-college?
Say what? Was
that high school, pre-college, or where did the Fugu start?
This started maybe 5 years ago. Honestly, it's been just it was in the boiler for okay, I'm going to do enough of these in this sketchbook that I can then redo them and do a web comic or something.
Okay.
And then I got hired by Famous Monsters of Filmland, and that was put on hold. So then I would just continue sketching new ideas. How can I make this violent fish, the star of every, one panel gag or, one page gag. And I had enough ideas eventually that I was like, okay, instead of putting this in Clusterfux, I really want this to be my own thing. I want to keep this from the world. And it'll just be a one-man anthology of this pufferfish, and then any other characters that I've sketched or come to mind that can make appearances too, just so it's not just complete pages of just pufferfish. I don't know if you remember, there was a cartoon collection years ago called The Bunny Suicides or something like that, where it was just every page was a different interpretation of how these bunnies would commit suicide. And it was just that was the whole gag. That was the whole gist of all these bunnies committing suicide in various ways, creative ways. I'm sure that is definitely an influence, but I didn't want it to be just complete full of just Fugu comics. I wanted to have some buffers, some fillers, some palette cleansers. And that's where you got characters like DJ Rodney or Lord Button Chops.
Lord Button Chops and DJ Rodney are they almost remind me of almost like a, Nick Kroll could play it very well. Someone that's just
I can see that.
A little of that New Jersey, I'm the fucking DJ guy, that vibe, but he's butt cheeks.
I love Lord Button Chops. It's fucking great, dude.
It's silly, dude.
But
I
love fart jokes. Dick fart and poop jokes are the funniest thing in the world to me.
You can never go wrong with fart jokes. I mean, with Lord Button Chops, I just thought one day the word mutton chops, and then I was like, well, it'd be pretty funny if you made it button chops. And then I was just like, that's so stupid. I need to make a comic about this. And then, of course, a giant ass for a face is the go-to with actual mutton chops there.
Yeah.
So
Hilarious.
it was supposed to just be a throwaway character, but I have a couple of new Lord Button Chop comics lined up for issue 2 that I'm really excited about. I can't
it's
tell
becoming
you how,
a thing. Yeah, definitely. That's
awesome,
awesome,
a great
dude.
little short. It's a great short.
I need to
funny.
have maybe a 6-page comic or something, and maybe an future issue of just a Bridgerton spinoff, except it's just Lord Button Chop.
Dude, what I was
think
thinking,
that would just be fantastic.
What I was thinking was Mom and Dad Save the Universe, or whatever that movie is. Do you remember that movie from the
vaguely
early 90s? John Lovitz plays the evil overlord, and he goes, what do you think, sideburns or mutton chops? And he has different hair pieces that he puts on, and one of his henchmen, who's a half dog creature thing, was mutton chops, and then he shoots him with a laser gun. It's completely ridiculous. It's completely John Lovitz, Saturday Night Live 93, that kind of over the top vibe. But I will never forget that shit, because that I think I was 6 and I learned what mutton chops were. It's that's a thing.
Absolutely, absolutely it is. But for this upcoming issue that I'm doing, I hope to get it out by like maybe late summer. Instead of Psychic Snail, I decided to have a new person come in, and it's my dad. I realized for years now he's such a character, and he is always so fucking noisy. So I'm definitely having a lot of comics revolving around him and how noisy he is, and putting him in all these different scenarios. Some are true to life, so they're a little bit of like an autobio comic, a little bit, and then others are just in the realm of just like, yes, I'm over exaggerating, but not really. It's still really true to form. So, he is my muse in that sense. And I know that I'll get a kick out of seeing him in print. And I know my mom will get a kick out of it. My mom's been giving me ideas even like, oh, don't make fun of your father. But if you're going to make fun of your father, here's some ideas to help here. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then also in the Fugu realm, another issue of Ultra Fugu, which I hope to have like maybe early next year. Instead of him versus King Ghidorah, it's going to be him versus like a Gamera type of archetype there instead. It's just me tapping into my kaiju love. And I actually really storyboarded this one a hell of a lot better than I did the first one, because again, it's a learning experience. You learn what worked in the first issue and you take that to the future issues there. But even if I'm taking a break from Clusterfux, even by a couple of months, I still have plenty to keep me occupied. And I mean, it feels good that it's kind of my own stuff, because yes, I love editing the anthology. I love contributing to it. But like, I one day want to not have any comics in here. I want just nothing but pure talent, not being fucked up by my presence in there. And I'm only behind the scenes pulling the strings there, as it were.
So how did you find that treating you, as far as having to deal with, in Clusterfux 1, I think you had 4 or 5 contributors. And then in this one is like, obviously double or triple that, if I'm not mistaken. Like, you've got so many more contributors. Like, the process and the detail, attention to detail, the hands-on approach that you have had to be so exhausting, adding that many more contributors. Like, what did that look like for you?
Well, first of all, everyone wants to do the cover. Everyone always comes to me first and says, hey, can I do the cover for this one? And you had to tell them, no, unfortunately, someone either already claimed it or I offered it to somebody else months ago before you even came into the discussion here. But it's kind of like herding cats. I was glad that in the first couple of issues, I was organized, but then thanks to work, coincidentally enough, like I've been even more organized as of late.
Nice.
So what, like my spreadsheets and like my Google Drives and all this stuff, I have so much information coming at me, and I'm plugging it in always. I'm getting updates on where people are at and during the timelines. I'm giving them deadlines. I'm doing check-ins every now and then just to make sure we're all on the same page and no one's like, oh, I wasn't sure if I was in the anthology or not. Because that has happened. People have thought like, oh, well, I hadn't heard back from you. And you're communicating with them over Instagram and they didn't get the vital information over email.
Yep.
So it really is just like wanting to make sure everyone's on the same page and there's not going to be any surprises. And I always say, if you don't think you're going to be able to make the deadline, please let me know as soon as possible. I completely understand. The last thing I want is to, feel like I'm in a situation where I'm waiting on you to get your work in and you just realized, 2 days ago that it was due today. And I'm getting, whatever rough sketch coming in. Thankfully, we've avoided that particular scenario. But, if it was in the hands of a lesser editor, they might just be caught off guard or unawares. And I'm sure, Matt, you can see where I'm coming from with editing the magazine. And
it's the worst.
I mean, the thing I liked about the magazine was you went to people you knew first, right? And then you had like kind of an open call.
Yeah, I did an open call, but I only used one page comic from one of the contributors from the open call, and I kind of was familiar with him before I did that. But when so like we've had this issue every time you do an issue. No, not every time, but the first couple where I was like, you have 42 pages, you need 44. Or, you have whatever, 48 you need, or 49 you need 52 or 48 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I was, you're in that room.
I've never been good at math.
you're in that area too where it's like, all right, I have all these contributors, I know I want to use these, what's actually possible. All right, this article that I'm writing, I got to cut that. I'm not going to do 3 pages there. This thing that I thought I could throw in to like mix it up and do a word puzzle. I had a word search. I had a word fall. I was doing these things that, like, when I was a kid, my grandma used to give me these puzzle books that I would fill out when I was, and they had all the different types of like or like arts and literature, or like, I don't even know what English, like problems. I don't know. Crossword puzzles.
English problems.
Yeah. Puzzles. Like crossword puzzles, fill-ins, word falls, word searches. And then once in a while, there'd be that one where you have to copy the square and then each square makes up a little piece of the artwork, and then you draw a rose or something. You know what I'm saying?
The point being.
So it has all these things, and I wanted to incorporate that into the Ratna scene, but it just wasn't feasible. When it came down to editing, I was like, I hate everyone. My writing sucks. I fucking hate all the contributors. I can't include you. I want, like, everything was just a pain.
He didn't mean that, people. He loves all of you contributors.
Fuck all you guys. No, thank you for everyone that contributed.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying. You have a big idea of what you can do with something, and then it's kind of like a hard realization sometimes when you sit down and start to edit it and be like, oh, okay, what's actually possible with putting this out before the deadline.
Yeah.
I not only do I suck at the math with like multiples of 4, I always think I have it right. And then when I run it by you and you're like, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but you need 2 more pages or you need 2 less pages. I'm like, God damn it. And I just like flip the table over. But I am also a little loose when I tell my contributors, like, okay, you have like, 4 to 12 pages to play with, please let me know how many pages you think you're going to need, just so I can start doing a rough estimate on the spreadsheets of like, okay, we're at page X. How many filler pages am I going to need? How many, extra pages do I need to kill? What ad space and all this stuff. So I start trying to do it, but unfortunately, I can only do it when I have the final product finished and knowing, okay, this is what it looks like. Now I just have to hope for the best that it falls within a multiple of 4 and send it off to Matt to prove and see if I was right or wrong. But I mean, thankfully, and I ran into this with like the Fugu comics and the Ultra Fugu. Like, okay, if I need 2 pages of filler, I have 2 pages of filler. Like, I can do sketches, I can do, a brief history of like why I love Godzilla movies and all this stuff. So like, I personally, as a creative person, I know I can fill that shit easy, whether it's with ads, whether it's with like shit from my archives, whatever. But I don't want to if I don't have to. But at the same time, it's also my fault that I've been telling people, just whatever, just let me know whenever. And if I'm a little bit more like, rigid about it, I might just be in the future like, okay, it has to be, an even number, or, you have to give me something like a cover page or something for the comic if I need that extra page or whatnot.
Yeah, if you really want to format it out like that. But I mean, I know exactly what you're saying. It's like, yeah, I can come up with 2 pages, but it's kind of a bitch at the end, because you think you have everything done and you're like, all right, it's ready to go to print. And then they're like, 2 more pages. It's the worst, dude. And like you said, I email you and I'm like, hey, Cam, hope everything's good. Sorry to be this guy, but you need 2 more pages.
Yeah. No, but I mean, also it is fun talking to the contributors, because for some of them, this is either like their first paid gig, or like I have people now, and this is the exciting part. People I have been following, people I admire and respect, reaching out to me to say, hey, I would love to contribute to the next issue. Do you think you'd have room for me or whatnot? And even if I'm at max capacity, I'm fucking letting that person in, because I've admired them so long. And I know it's going to look amazing, whatever they contribute. They don't even have the idea yet, but I know them. I know their style for years. Yes. And I'm keeping names nameless right now because I want to keep it a surprise. But I have some really big fucking heavy hitters in this upcoming 5th issue.
Yeah.
I cannot wait to share.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
Fantastic.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm so fucking happy to hear that, dude. It's been amazing to like watch it grow, and people, it's not like you haven't had amazing artists in the previous issues, because every issue since one has been fucking packed
on point.
And even just being able to contribute to the free comic book day one for me, I was like, fuck, thank you, man, because I'm not that in that league of illustrator artists like that. So thank you for including me.
You totally are. I love your contribution. Let me bring it up here.
Oh shit!
It's this great
put him on the spot.
Where is it?
Shout out Demos right there.
Great real-time radio here.
Matt hates being put on the spot, so I love that you're doing this now.
It's very fun.
This is
very fun for Jim.
If everyone can see, he's
biblical right there.
I did the Goosebumps one.
No, you didn't. Shut up. That was Ashton.
I'm just fucking around.
Really good. But yeah, no, I mean, it's just that opportunity. And I mean, okay, between us girls, I think eventually I want to get like a pinup or maybe a cover from Charles Globitz. I know he's out of the league, but I do have a wish list of people who I would love to get like a cover or a pinup from.
Oh yeah.
Not only from like this generation, but from like generations past. Like I would love to like have a correspondence with like Kim Deitch and just be like, hey Kim, by the way, I don't know if want to contribute to my shitty little magazine here, but I would love to have something for you. I have, and again, I can't use names because I don't want to, jinx it. But I do have such a correspondence with like an old time pro that I'm trying to, butter up a little bit before I maybe pull the trigger and ask meekly. Because what I learned from podcasting many years ago, when I wanted to get big interviews with like the big names, the best thing to do is ask. Don't assume that anyone's coming to you. Mm-hmm. You ask them, because the worst thing they could say is no.
That's right.
The best thing is, yeah, I got a couple minutes. So same thing with, art. I might not be able to offer them much, but they might see that and they might see the true underground indie nature of it and go, yeah, I've been there. I know what that's like. This person's not trying to profit off me personally by, selling the originals or what have you. This person obviously is a fan of my work. And, I think it's, I'm honored to be even asked. And, no one's asked me. For all I know, they might not be getting asked nowadays. And they might, want to just flex that muscle, or they want to try something new that they couldn't in the past for whatever reason, because it wasn't either profitable or there wasn't a market for it. But I mean, with Clusterfux, I feel you can add whatever your style is to it, and I can find a nice little niche place for it too. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, you just got to dream big. Go big or go home, because there's a lot of mediocre comics out there. You don't want to be another one. You don't want to be just sitting there on whatever comic book spinner rack in whatever local comic book shop, not being picked up because people go, oh, that looks like a carbon copy of this other thing I just picked up, and it sucks. So got to stand out somehow.
Yeah,
got to market yourself.
There's a difference between being technically proficient and having a style or having a feel,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and like I said earlier, you found a good way of honing in your style, your character in your comics. Like it has
your fingerprints all over it.
Yeah, fingerprint is a good way to say it. Yeah, and it's appealing. Like it's simple in the best way possible, but it allows the reader to look at it and like identify with it, like the story that goes along with it. And especially, as I was saying earlier, kind of the progression from 1 to 4. You found the background, the detail in the non-detail that speaks to the reader.
Yeah, and that
is just phenomenal. Yeah.
Now it comes with like a few pages. You get the contributor page later, the editor page. You get the things that you get to list everyone off as their work, but putting it all together, it feels like your work.
And I appreciate that. I want to have something, I mean, relatable is definitely like a key word there, because I mean, there is that really fine line between like underground comics and then just like fucking underground comics, where it is raw, nasty. You can't get this shit in a comic book shop, let alone like a head shop.
Hell yeah.
And it's like it's really dark, and like your own mother would be shocked with what she saw. Like my parents buy this shit. They don't care. My dad doesn't understand it quite, but he still shows it off and he brags about it to people who, stop and listen to him. But like, I'll give you a perfect example. Vacuum Decay, that anthology series by Harry Nordlinger. I love it, but it is really fucked up in certain parts. And I can't see myself like putting anything some of that content like in Clusterfux, because I would worry that, comic book shops would be, we can't sell this shit, or, they might not want to take a risk on it. And that would put all the other artists and creators I put in that same issue in jeopardy. And I don't want one like bad apple to ruin it for everybody, or let alone be associated with it. And I'm not saying that about Vacuum Decay. I think it's still a great publication, but it's definitely on its own playing field compared to like what Clusterfux is.
Right.
They might be somewhat related, but they're definitely not siblings for sure.
Wait, I had a question about, because in our first interview when we talked over a year ago about issue 1, I asked if you had ever had to like reject submission, or like if something was too risque, or if it was, too over the top, and you're like, yes and no. I try to include everything. There has been a couple things I didn't include in this one just because, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But I feel like throughout the progression of it, you've gotten a little bit looser and just kind of been like, hey, listen, this is for adults. The contributors are psychopaths. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to see some shit, but it's not necessarily a dark comic. It just, there's crazy shit in it.
When people ask, contribute, and I send them the prompt of what's it, all the specifics and whatnot, what have you. One thing I say is nudity's fine, just no hardcore pornography, because there have been like at least 2 or 3 people who have tried to, submit and say like, hey, check out my stuff. Here's my portfolio. And they'll link me to their Instagram or like their website. And just like, it's just a one-track mind or a one-track comic. And if it works for them, great. If they're getting people to, pay for that, wonderful. I just don't think there would be a place for it in Clusterfux, because not only would I feel, kind of weird publishing it, I would also, anyone I would give it to, whether it would be a family member or a friend, I don't want them all of a sudden thinking, oh, he's into that kind of shit. Oh, is that what he's trying to corrupt the youth with?
It's also, it's an underground comic. It's a niche, if you will, but it's not a super small, like, pool of people that are into it. It's a very big world, the underground comic scene, right? So it incorporates all the stuff, and sex and violence and nudity and bad words. All is under the umbrella of it. But when you get a little darker, or a little bit into another cavern or crevice, if you will, you don't
have to put an asterisk when you hand it to somebody. Like, pay attention to, or don't let your kids see page 13 through 12.
We already put warning, or mature audiences, or nudity, or, we give warnings to these anthologies and shit. So it's not like you want to be like, this is all pretty normal, but then there's that rape thing on page 16. It's like, fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Especially if it doesn't like help propel the story. It's just rape for rape's sake. I mean, Underground back in the day, yes, was definitely its own thing. It was definitely, fuck you to the establishment, and we can do our own shit. And I love that spirit. And I love being able to be a part of something like the outcast, the people who don't really have a home for, that aren't going with the contemporary comics and like, the superheroes and stuff like that. That was the alternative. That was the escape for a lot of people who weren't even into comics, to be like, oh yeah, I can identify with this. I can relate to this. This is fucking funny. It's ridiculous, what have you. And there's always going to be comics like that out there. And, Clusterfux is its own little vein of that. I definitely feel like we have that spirit of what, not necessarily like our crumb, but definitely like just of that like era where it's stuff for people out there who are looking for that missing component, or something they can really relate to and be impressed by, discover a new fun artist at the end of the day. And that's all I want at the end of the day, is you find someone new that you can go follow and buy their shit and enjoy it, because I know a lot of these people are going to go off and be amazing artists. And I'm happy to help propel them to their, their next excellence, as it were.
Yeah. Well, and the Clusterfux style lends to that, like a bolstering of people at their best. Like, you're very PG-13, like in the best way possible. Like PG-13 in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, that's where directors of photography, that's where everyone starts, is in that teenage years, where you're going to put together something specifically designed for someone and let it bolster into an entire franchise. You know what I mean? I think, well, it doesn't matter what I think, but Clusterfux has a very specific character to it, which doesn't need that hardcore side to it, which doesn't need that childish side to it. Like it already has all of that encompassed in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Both worlds.
Yeah. The character to the comic in general, and I think it's more about the way that you put together your contributors, like you were talking about before, than necessarily the stories that they're telling. Like you've got a very great way of combining things together and presenting things. Like I really have to give you kudos and tip my hat to you at the way that you're able to produce the comic more than just grab some stories, throw them together and call it an issue. Like there is a cohesiveness to it.
Way. Yeah.
No, yeah, because that's a common misconception. I was just having this conversation with someone earlier today, another artist that does comics, and you know, anthologies can be looked at as something that's just tossed together, and if it's a bunch of comics, and you know, they don't necessarily have to directly relate, they don't necessarily have to directly look the best,
but the best ones do.
But yeah, to get the feel of the whole thing cohesive, it takes a touch. And if to do that right, it is a skill, and it does like deserve the respect that people should give it, and it doesn't always get. So
there's your respect.
So fucking
Pam.
kudos to Clusterfux.
I appreciate the kind words, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Before I forget, we were talking about contributors and like if I ever had to reject anyone. So I don't know if you guys remember the Kickstarter a couple of years ago, Jaws in the Multiverse.
Yeah.
It was the guy who ran it, Paul Jersaic.
Yes,
I think I'm saying his name right. Took everyone's money and ran. Right, it was funded.
I've heard the story. I don't know. Specifically, but
so that's what happened. He had all these great artists contribute like their version of Jaws in whatever movie verse that they wanted to, and it was this big project, and everyone was like, "Hey, this is going to be pretty cool," because it was just supposed to be just an anthology of Jaws by all these different artists and in all whatever cinematic universe. And then it was funded, and then he went silent.
Yeah.
And everyone was just like, okay, well, maybe he's just, processing, maybe he's getting it together, next steps and all that stuff. No one has heard from him since.
We worked
and
him.
Right before this happened, he reached out to me to be in issue like number 2 or
no shit.
What it was. And I was excited at the time because I was like, is this the Paul Jersaic of the Jaws vs. the Multiverse? My man, I would love to have you contribute something. And so he's pitching me ideas. I'm giving him deadlines. He misses the first deadline for like issue 2, I think it was. I was like, hey, no worries. I have issue 3 just started. We can just move you over there. And then his ideas changed as well. He's like, I was thinking about doing this, if RoboCop went to high school and taught, a bunch of kids, but then I decided not to. I wanted to maybe do this instead. I was like, okay, just whatever you feel comfortable with. I'd love to hear the pitch, yada yada yada. And then right before he went, blank on everybody, he tried to pitch me. He had like this 48-page PDF that was unpublished of this like wild story, and it was like all in color. So at first I was like, you're gonna have to turn it into black and white. And he's like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, blah blah blah. But like the story, I went through all 48 pages of it. It made no fucking sense. And like the art style was everywhere. So I got the impression he couldn't get it published. So he's just like, well, fuck it. I'll just try to pitch it to him as like, oh, and he didn't even say you could use the 48 pages. He said like, yeah, you can like carve it up and, take maybe 20 pages of like whatever you feel like is the best material or whatever. And I was just thinking like, well, no, I'm not going to take an already established story and try to like edit it down to something that doesn't make sense, to something that makes even less sense with no context. So that was my brush with fame, as it were, when it came to like contributors that were like big names in the early days. But yeah, fuck that guy. I don't know what happened.
That's super funny.
That's wild.
That's what happens when you do $10,000 worth of GoFundMe coke.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that's what happens when you do $10,000 worth of GoFundMe coke.
Yeah, I mean, to ruin your whole name and reputation over a couple $1,000s. What the fuck? I mean, if you're gonna grift properly. At least have this published, and then go bigger for number 2, knowing you already have an established base of people who are gonna give you money.
Yeah.
Double that, and then you take a hike.
Dude, I mean,
but I don't know. I'm not a grifter, so
we're gonna need a bigger boat. That's all I know.
Very nice.
All
Very
right, sorry.
nice.
I got what my question. I got my question to ask Cam.
Jim's got to ask Cam. Go.
Ask Cam a question. When you read a comic, when you open it and you start going through, do you scan the page and look at all the images first? Do you read the speech bubbles and wording per panel as you go through and then kind of look at it after the fact? How do you read a comic?
If it's an artist I already know, like a Mobius, for instance, I will look at the page and glance at it first. Because with certain artists, you don't even need to see the fucking word bubbles. You can just look at the art and get what you can just enjoy it that way.
Just feel it. Yeah.
But traditionally, I will read the word bubbles first, and then I will look at whatever the panels are, and then as a whole, I will observe the art if it's, if it's worthy enough to spend more than a couple minutes on. But yeah, that's how I usually read comics. But it honestly depends on who the artist is and how excited I am to just shut up and give me the eye candy. I don't care what this person's saying. It's probably not going to even matter. Some throwaway dialogue. Show me the background. Show me the details. Show me like the vibrant colors. That's what I'm interested in.
I love it. That question is going to be answered in so many different ways. I cannot wait.
I was going to say that's Jim's new hot question.
That's my new hot question. I've only gotten two. I've got two in so far, and that's my new hot shit.
All right, dude. Well,
you're like Nate Garcia asking what people had for breakfast that morning.
Yeah.
I just go pierogies all fucking day. Let's go.
Bride. Absolutely.
That's all you get, Nate.
I have a question for you guys. I asked my followers, all right, I'm going to be on this podcast. Never heard of them. What do you guys want to ask? And I had one person ask, have you guys had a totally absurd or weird printing printing inquiry before, or have they had a comic too weird to print or sell?
I don't think there is such a thing. I don't think there's something that would be too weird for us to put out.
Not that we've turned down for the reason of the artwork. No, by no means.
Creativity is creativity, whether it's fucked up and crazy or clean and Christian. Like we'll go for it.
Yeah, the only thing we've ever said no to is like, if you don't pay, then we can't print it. That's a big one.
That's a big one.
Yeah. It turns out we do this for a living, so you gotta pay.
It's my only hang up.
Yeah. No, like we have had the discussion though. Would we put out something that is like objectively against our political or moral or ethical views? And up to this point, we haven't been asked to do that, but we have had
to cross that bridge yet.
No, we really haven't.
But when Hitler comes a knocking.
Yeah. We work with some amazing artists, not just in their creativity and their talent, but like their character and person as well. Like we have not been asked to do anything that would compromise our ethics or our morals or our even our political views. And I say that term very loosely.
And I know there is that conversation as well as separating the art from the artist and stuff like that. But I mean, in certain cases, it's hard to do. And I mean, that's like definitely like the on the fence answer. Like, well, yeah, he might, be a white supremacist, but he makes some great art. It doesn't
I hate that shit though. If I found out that someone was, if I knew someone that made insensitive artwork, I would give them a break. If I found out that you made any kind of artwork and you were an asshole, I'd completely be against your shit.
Well, look, let's be completely honest. Joe Sprandio, who we support 100
Christopher Sprandio.
Fuck, Chris. Joe. Pinko Joe, that's what was in my head. Pinko Joe. Chris Sprandio, he's the man. We love him and we support him. He is extremely on the left side of things. Like he has some very harsh views that honestly, if they were all the way on the right that hard, I might not be able to support them. But because I'm in line with his views a little bit more than something on that far of the right, I have 100% saying like, yeah, fuck Putin. Like, let's let this shit fly. Like, get your side of this out of there. But in no way, shape, or form am I going to let something fly, or are we going to let something fly that is bigoted or in racist or in some way just hateful. Like our whole thing here, and this is what we say to every artist, you know this before we start the podcast, our whole thing here is to support positivity. We're not going to make you look not bad. We're not going to make us look bad. We're not going to make anybody you speak about look bad. We want to support positivity in a creative sense. Sometimes that gets political. Sometimes that gets into people's like true passionate points of view, but that is different than like a bigoted or like a racistly driven comic or racistly driven art piece or something like that. And it's very obvious when those things come up. And we've been lucky to not have to cross that bridge.
Yeah, with the agenda behind it and shit, it's like, all right, if we said some insensitive things on this podcast probably, but you know, it's all in good fun. When there's actually hate and like that kind of like trying to get a hateful message across, that's where we fucking draw the line. We say, get that crap out of here.
Yeah.
We don't like that stuff.
We probably edit our podcast heavier than we edit the contributors to comics
to the zines and shit. Yeah, totally.
Because that's your creative prerogative. You want to put something
art
out
on the page, dude.
I mean, our biggest rodent is Hank Simmons, who draws mostly in hell. So who are we to judge?
Do we want to stop here again? Just so we don't rush
let's just cut it right here. This is a perfect time to cut. I think this is beautiful. Yeah.
All right, dude. We'll cut all this out. We're getting the fuck out of here,
I love
Cameron.
you, Cam.
This has been the best.
Hit us with your website, your Instas, all that.
There you go.
So you can get me at camiscomiccorner.com/comics. That'll give you links to everything on my Big Cartel store. And you can also get the free comic book day PDF there. But if you want, you go, fuck that, I don't care about your website. You can also go to clusterfuxcomics.bigcartel.com. You can find us on Instagram at clusterfuxcomics, on Twitter, and it's kind of active, at clusterfuxc. And then, go support the magazine. Go get it at the following comic book stores: Collector's Paradise North Hollywood, Escape Pod Comics in Long Island, Gutter Pop Comics in Buffalo, Floating World Comics in Portland, I want to say. Yep. And then finally, what's the last one? Quimby's in Chicago. So, and then soon to be in Silver Sprocket, and check the feed out for that as well. And then any free comic book day issues you want physically, you can go to Rat Nest Sticker Co., order something and get it in your order. Supplies are limited.
Yeah, honestly, if you're listening to this, just DM me. I might have a couple left. I'm not really going to offer them with just any order anymore. Free comic book day has passed.
You missed out.
Love doing the collab with you, dude. It was so awesome that you sent me the copies to give out. So stoked on how everything came out. Thank you so much for being with us again, man, and bullshitting with us. You're always the best to talk to.
We love you, Cam.
I can't wait to do it again in another 4 issues.
Absolutely. You're one of the original rodents, bro. We got a lot of love for you. Special place in the Rat Nest heart, bro. Take care of yourself.
Rat Nest for life.
Hell yeah, dude.
Much love.
This has been another episode of the Rat Nest Podcast. You can catch us every week on Fridays with video on YouTube and audio wherever you get your podcast. Go to ratneststickerco.com to get print, zines, comics, free comic book day, issues of Clusterfux, and more.
Limited.
I'm going right now. Good.